Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome from a cold Belfast, Northern Ireland. It's good to have everyone with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. And Andrew is standing by in New York. So, Andrew, hopefully you're with us. Are you there in New York, sir?
I am here, Trevor.
Good to see you. How's the weather there?
Well, warmer than it was for the last 8 months. We have two seasons here. There's spring and winter.
Right. You had a long winter this time.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get straight into the questions because that's what people are here for. This one comes in, I don't have the name actually. It says, I am curious to know if our eyesight and graying can be addressed through nutrition and exercises. With age, does our eyesight decrease from 20/20 vision, and the same with graying? Have you experimented with this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. We'll talk about eyesight first, and the first thing you're going to notice is that I wear glasses, so take that into consideration. If there were an easy fix for improving your eyesight, naturally, I would look like this instead of like this. I started wearing glasses when I was 8 years old, and probably too soon. I've talked to behavioral optometrists since then who said that really I could have just worn glasses a little bit of the time, and my parents, who were very dutiful about doing whatever the doctor said, had me wear my glasses all the time. That may have not been the best advice to follow, but they followed it in good faith. As far as things like simple myopia go, I think that the Bates eye exercises are worth looking at, B-A-T-E-S. Bates was very interested in massage, and he designed a series of hand exercises. One is called palming, where you fit the palms right over like that. They fit right in, and you, with the lids closed, you look up and down and to either side. I think the Bates eye exercises are very good. Many of you know that I'm a licensed pilot, and I decided to test this once, so I asked my eye doctor to give me glasses that were too weak for me. Instead of my regular driving or flying glasses, I asked for a reduced prescription, and he made some half-strength glasses for me. I did the Bates eye exercises for quite a while regularly before I went up flying, and at 4,000 feet I could see the ripples on Lake Ontario with my glasses that were not adequate. So there's something to this, in my opinion. The second thing to try are the Chinese eye exercises that I describe in my website, and I think in Doctor Yourself. These are a series of pressure points. There's one up here in the supraorbital notch. There's one here by the temple. There's one down here where the facial nerves comes out of the maxilla. And there's this one here that you see a lot of people do instinctively. And then there's gently stroking the lids with the eyes closed. And then there's an acupuncture point or acupressure point. It's hard to show that on camera, but it's basically the crook of the thumb. And you can press there on either one. Now, I went through them very quickly. Normally, if you're going to do those, you might take several minutes. So these are two things I would recommend for simple vision issues like myopia or perhaps for farsightedness. For things like macular degeneration, a major cause of blindness in the elderly, that can absolutely be prevented or the risk reduced by taking a diet that's high in antioxidants. And that means vitamin C, vitamin E as in Edward, and vegetable juices. Cataracts, another concern as we get older, and you don't have to be old to get a cataract. Probably 10% of the people that have cataract surgery are under 60. And that no longer seems old to me. So bear in mind that cataracts have been shown to be less likely, or at least less pronounced, in people that take lots of vitamin C. So additional antioxidants do protect the eye from many things. I would say the best thing to do is to try to look into this more. You can't do any harm doing these eye exercises carefully and gently. You can't do any harm drinking vegetable juice, and those are the two things that I would recommend.
And those Chinese exercises you talk about, Andrew, like the pressure points, are they supposed to help you like instantly, like clear your vision, or is that a long-term thing?
Well, I would say in terms of vision improvement, it's an open question. Whenever I do them, I feel so much more relaxed, and Dr. Bates said that that was part and parcel of some vision disorders. He believed that the extrinsic, the outside muscles of the eye, had a lot to do with it. Conventional eye doctors will tell you it's the inside muscles, the tiny little muscles that actually manipulate the lens. But Bates felt the outside muscles had a lot to do with it. At the very least, I feel more relaxed. Does my vision improve when I do them? I think it does, but of course that could be the old placebo effect again. Will it work long term? I think you just need to try it and find out. Remember, those are acupressure exercises. No needles are involved here. Common sense tells us make sure your nails aren't too long. Make sure that you are careful when you're putting your fingers around your eyes, and read up on this, because I think you'll find that these traditional exercises have much to offer.
That's fascinating. Someone had sent us a question here. They were watching the first video that we did in the launch of the Megavitamins course, where we explained how bad sugar is generally, but especially to do with depression. And they're asking about types of sugar, basically. Are we just talking about processed white sugar as being bad for you, or does it extend to honey, to maple syrup, and so on and so on?
Nah, they're all bad. Some are worse than others. Truth of the matter is, a dietitian, classically trained, traditionally trained, medically oriented, will tell you that sugar is sugar, and there's some truth to that. If you eat vast amounts of honey, or vast amounts of maple syrup, or vast amounts of brown sugar, you're going to have a problem. But there is a backstory to this. You can't. You can't eat a lot of fresh, raw, dark, cloudy honey from the honeycomb. You can't do it. Try it. Get a honeycomb, an actual honeycomb, and let that honey ooze out. This is unfiltered, unprocessed, just the way the bees made it. And if you try to eat a half a cup of fresh, raw, unprocessed honey, you're not going to be able to do it. The same with pure maple syrup. As a former Vermonter, hey, I am here to tell you that I'm a real fan of maple syrup, and I love maple syrup on oatmeal. I like it on a lot of things. I just can't eat a lot of it. It's satisfying. Now, when you get a box of chocolates, when you get candy bars, when you get sweets in general, they're made with white sugar, sucrose, or worse than that, they're made with glucose, which is half of a sucrose, basically. It's a single ring blood sugar that's absorbed almost instantly. Fructose is also a single ring sugar, and that's absorbed very fast. If you have soft drinks, commonly they have fructose in them, and if you have candies, they often have glucose in them. This is because sucrose doesn't make as smooth and transparent a product as glucose does, so they usually use some of each. That's just a manufacturing trick. If you make candy at home, you will use some corn syrup and you will use regular table sugar. There's a reason for that. Having said this, it's the quantity, really, that's the issue. And with white sugar, there's no off switch. Many people, and I'm one of them, can sit down and eat a half a pound of chocolate, no problem. I can do it. I've done it. I have to make sure that I don't. You're probably wondering how I do that. I don't keep it in the house. That's how, because I know that I can do that. So if you know you're allergic to tigers, don't keep one in your closet. You know, it comes down to that. Self-limiting sugars are even more dramatic when you have them in fruit. Fruit is satisfying. It's very sweet, but it's satisfying. A wonderful example would be things like dates and figs. When your kids come around and pester you for something sweet, give them 15 dates, and I guarantee they won't be back. And there's less sugar in 15 dates than in half a pound of chocolate. Now, would you be better off having no sweet fruit at all? Well, maybe, but wouldn't you be kind of miserable? You have to bend, you have to flex. We live in a real world with real people. What should you do? Cut your sugar intake any way you can do that. And the best way is cut out the white sugar, the processed sugar, and have more of the fruits and have more of the satisfying natural sugars. And that way you will eat less. Yes, there's some vitamins and minerals and other things as well with the natural sugars, but when you get right down to it, with sugar, less is best. And natural sugars help you consume less.
Interesting. Someone else writes in and asks, and we don't like to mention trademark products here, so I'm not going to mention it by name, but there's a range of sort of a new type of blender that's out that totally pulverizes your food, and a lot of people are taking this and they're saying it's the manufacturers say it's better than juicing and it's better than blending. And their reasoning behind that is because you're still getting the fiber. Sum up the truth or the non-truth in those sort of thoughts, Andrew.
Any juicer, any blender is good. If you use a juice machine, an extractor, a blender, whatever it is, if it gets you to consume more vegetables, it's good. Anything that increases your intake of raw vegetables and pulverizes them to make them easily absorbable is good. What's the best juicer to get? The one you will use. Now, as far as the details go, there are two types of fiber. One is roughage, or insoluble fiber. And if you have a blender-type juicer, that leaves that fiber in, so you get more fiber. That's not necessarily a good idea. First of all, if you consume as much juice as I do, you might get too much fiber. Now, it's hard to get too much fiber, but it's possible. People with irritable bowel or colitis or a sensitive stomach, the elderly, they might possibly want to avoid getting too much fiber. Again, it's hard to do. The second reason that you'd want to consider a juice extractor, which removes the insoluble fiber, is because the product is clearer and smoother and easier to drink. Many children are willing to drink clarified juice through an extractor, and they don't want to drink the thick, dark baby food that comes out of a blender. I'm not saying that one is better than another. I'm saying we have to be realistic. What works for you is fine with me.
Yeah, that makes sense, because my son, actually, who's 17, if I juice the carrots, he won't drink the carrot juice until I've strained it.
Right, now here's the cool part. When you strain the carrot juice, you're thinking, oh, I took the fiber out. You did take the insoluble fiber out, but the soluble fiber is still in there. Soluble fiber is just what it sounds like. It's dissolved. And soluble fiber is effective in relieving constipation. It's effective in helping to prevent a number of cardiovascular diseases. The history of research on fiber, both soluble and insoluble, is decades long. So you don't have to have what Grandma called roughage. You can use the soluble fiber. This is why any juicer, any blender, as long as you use it.
Great, thank you. This is a sort of email when it comes into the office that we all can identify with and pulls at the heartstrings a little bit. Dear Mr. Saul, I have a daughter suffering from OCD. She is 12 now and has been suffering since she was 8. My wife and I have literally spent thousands of dollars on doctors, tests, and drugs with no positive results. I am begging for any help you can give me. Sincerely, a tearful father.
One word answer. Niacin. In Dr. Hoffer's and my book, Niacin, the Real Story, we talk about how niacin is used. It requires that you understand it. As Dr. William Parsons said, you have to understand niacin in order to use it. Niacin works very well with OCD. If the flush is a problem, you can use niacinamide, which will not cause a flush. It's interesting that people have gone to all these specialists and spent all this money, taken all this time, and suffered all this angst and distress, when it's quite possible their doctors never once mentioned that one word. So I'm going to mention it again. Niacin.
Just on niacin, we have another question here, and it's someone who basically is asking, they read in the, or they heard from someone involved in the Gerson regime that the non-flush the non-flush types of niacin are not as effective as the flush types. Any truth in that, in your opinion?
It's essentially a true statement, yes. Flush niacin works best. Dr. Abram Hoffer said that too. Niacinamide does not cause a flush. It will work for a mental condition, an emotional condition. Niacinamide has the advantage of not causing a flush, but niacinamide will not do anything about lowering triglycerides or lowering LDL. Niacinamide, therefore, is not as good as niacin, but it is for mental and emotional issues. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Then there's the other no-flush niacin that's commonly available called inositol hexaniacinate. That is useful for lowering LDL and triglycerides and will also work for mental and emotional conditions, but it doesn't work as well. In my experience, and I think Dr. Hoffer basically confirmed this, the inositol hexaniacinate is probably only about half as effective as regular flush niacin. If you can abide the flush, you either need to change your views and start abiding it, or you need to use the other forms. A lot of people get hung up on this, and you don't need to be. Look, if you can't stand the flush, then use the other forms. And if you want to use the best, then get used to the flush. Dr. Hoffer said it'll go away in a couple of weeks. You got to bear with it. But bear in mind that this is not something that you just charge into. So this is why you want to read up. And I always give homework, and I'm sorry, but this is what happens after all the teaching years that I've spent. I'm here to tell you that if you really want to know what you're doing, you're going to have to do more reading. And Dr. Abram Hoffer was the world authority on niacin therapy. So if you're trying to do something with your health with niacin and you haven't read Dr. Hoffer, you're going into the ring to fight the World Heavyweight Championship with one of your hands tied behind your back. Dr. Hoffer's books are very important reading. Orthomolecular Medicine for Everyone is probably the most accessible and broad-ranging text. And as I mentioned earlier, Niacin, the Real Story is very helpful. These books are available through your library. If your library doesn't have them, they can order it for you. So keep in mind, you don't even have to buy the book. You can just have your librarian get it for you. And then you and a lot of other people can read it.
Just from personal experience, I found the niacin flush. If anyone watched the videos, have suffered from depression a little. And I found the niacin flush very difficult to handle. And I now take that very long one that you mentioned, inositol hexaniacinate. I take 3,000 milligrams of that a day, and I find it's a huge relief to me.
It works.
All right, so are you saying that if basically that niacin itself is a stronger, performs a stronger whatever the word is, if you know what I'm saying?
I do. It has three clear advantages. The first is that niacin is absorbed really fast. It's a small molecule. Inositol hexaniacinate doesn't sound like a very small molecule, does it? Niacin, that's a small molecule. So it has the absorption advantage. Someone once asked me, do you need an IV of niacin? I said, no, you don't, because it just goes right in. The second thing about niacin is that the flush itself may be good because it's a histamine release. Releasing the histamine from the body cells can be very, very beneficial. There are people that have dealt with allergic shock, and if they get more niacin, they actually tend to come through it a little bit easier. Now, if you have a bee sting allergy or something like that, don't play around with this. Talk to your doctor. This is no time to experiment. But generally speaking, the niacin flush is a histamine release and a gradual one and a beneficial one. And the third advantage of niacin is that the flush is something of a marker. When you have a niacin flush, you know you took niacin. And since you're flushing, you really wouldn't want to take any more. So it's sort of a temporary sign that you have enough. When my brother had enough milk, if you were pouring milk into my brother's cup at dinner, when he had enough milk, he would just pull his cup away.
Right.
Think about that as you keep pouring. So the niacin flush is sort of like my brother pulling away his cup rather than saying that's enough milk. You just pull his cup away and you keep pouring onto the table.
I have a couple of people, Andrew, asking, I just got an email, a couple of emails there, asking if you could move your monitor very slightly to try to, because it's reflecting very much in your glasses. I don't know if that's possible. If it's not, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll try. Maybe it's just my luminous personality. Nope, you're out of luck.
No problem. That's fine. Someone else, just staying on the niacin, thing, and this is a sort of very personal email we get coming in. Could you cover something on how vitamin therapy, particularly niacin, can help victims of sexual abuse? I am a survivor of this from a very young age, and I'm now using niacin. A lot of what has happened I have blocked out. Would you say that this experience counts as being post-traumatic stress, similar to prisons of war mentioned in your book on niacin, in that I will deal with the consequences of that ordeal for the rest of my life? Thank you for your efforts.
I wish that vitamins could do everything. They can't. But what we do know is it's better to deal with post-traumatic stress or traumas of other related natures if you're well-nourished than if you're not. Bad nutrition never cured anything. So if taking niacin physically provides a person with less anxiety and the ability to sleep and the ability to be more measured and calm in their life, if it helps lift their depression, if it takes the edge off their anxiety, and niacin does do those things, obviously everything else is going to be better. There is much to be said for using good counseling therapy in cooperation with a biochemical therapy. Using both just makes good sense to me. Do everything you can. In my opinion, taking the niacin is a plus, and you also should use every other tool that you can bring to bear.
Okay, thank you for that. And our next question is what is the difference between a vitamin measured in IU versus milligrams?
It's like laundry detergent. When you buy a plastic jug of laundry detergent, there's two ways to decide how much you're getting for your money. You can look at the ounces or liters or milliliters, the volume on the label, or you can read the label and see how many wash loads you get. So if you have a highly concentrated laundry detergent, you might have a small bottle with the same number of wash loads as in a large bottle of dilute detergent. So therefore, international units is a measure of activity. When we say 100 units of vitamin E, that is about 150 milligrams of synthetic vitamin E, or about maybe 80 units of natural vitamin E. I'm giving you approximates, but the natural vitamin E is more effective. The synthetic will work, but not as well. You got to use a lot of it, and even then, I don't think the synthetic vitamin E is worth buying. But officially, international units of vitamin E can be compared to milligrams. If you do a Google search, you'll be able to confirm this. Vitamin D and vitamin E are the most commonly international united ones that you're going to run into. I wouldn't worry about this. I think if you just read carefully, it will be explained to you. Don't be fooled. It's a small point. Any vitamin label will have the information on the side label, nice and clear. If you're not sure about the units, write to the manufacturer or check on the internet.
Okay, thank you. A couple of people have just dropped us emails asking a little more about the course that we were talking about. I'll drop you a URL at the end of this webinar, folks, that you can have a look and see what the course is all about rather than wasting people's time. I'm not going to do a sales pitch on that. So there will be a URL come up at the end of this if you want to get a pen and write that down. Have a pen handy and you can get some more information there. Just so that you know, it is 3/4 full as well. There's only about a certain number of spaces left. We're 3/4 full on that, so that has gone very well. Okay, Andrew, someone is asking, a lady is asking who has suffered from adrenal fatigue for a couple of years and is asking if there's anything that can help there pretty quickly.
Well, I always hesitate to say pretty quickly, but if you've had adrenal fatigue for a couple of years, you could even use help pretty slowly, don't you think? So I would recommend that the first thing you do is to introduce vitamin C. Guess where the highest concentrations of vitamin C are in the human body? Ready? The answer is the adrenal glands, and also in the eye. We mentioned the eyes earlier. Now, this is probably not an accident. Nature is smarter than we think. Nature was here long before we came along and started thinking. In fact, nature was here before anybody did any thinking. Therefore, let's take a look at nature. If vitamin C is concentrated in the adrenal glands, it is likely that with adrenal exhaustion, you have a vitamin C exhaustion. And that, yes, this has been studied, and the correlation is pretty strong. So vitamin C would be very important. And the second thing that you'd want to do is everything else. You'd want to get a good whole foods diet, get rid of sugar, and start doing exercise and all the other stuff we've talked about. There is no monotherapy for anything. I mentioned niacin for OCD. Well, that's the most important thing. I mentioned vitamin C for the adrenal glands. That may be the most important thing. But let's constantly remember that no baseball team ever got to the World Series simply because it had one good player. You can have the greatest pitcher in the world, and you're not going to do very well when it's time to get up to bat. You need the whole team. A soccer team is not one person, it's a team. You need all the vitamins, you need all the nutrients. People ask me this, what should I take for such and such? And my glib answer is, everything. What should I juice? Everything. I take handfuls of vitamins every day. I know it's ridiculous, but it's just true. And this is something that is a fact of life. Nutrients work better together. They're synergistic. Vitamins are not drugs. Drugs tend to work in opposition to each other. This is why nutrition is safer, and this is why it works so well, but it's often why it doesn't work as fast. It's not as spectacular. Well, sometimes it is.
I think you've been looking at my questions, and you're not allowed to answer everything to this one. The lady is asking, what do I do about psoriasis?
Well, I can tell you what one fellow that I worked with did. Vegetable juicing. He just did lots and lots and lots of vegetable juicing. He had psoriasis all over the place. It's one thing to have it underneath your clothes, but it's on your neck and on your face and everything, and he was 30. He had a real major problem with psoriasis, and he just did lots and lots and lots of vegetable juicing. I know that sounds very simple. That's what he did, and it went away.
Okay. And someone asking about calcium supplements. They had heard a lot of good things, then they heard a lot of bad things. Where do you stand on calcium?
Well, the body absorbs calcium on an on-demand basis. You can't force the body to absorb calcium. Most of the calcium we eat does not get absorbed. The excess calcium is actually very valuable because it neutralizes bile acids and other things in the digestive tract that can be mild irritants. There was a study done about 20 years ago, and they noted that people that took too much calcium had an interior of their colon that was like the inside of the colon of a vegetarian. That's an interesting observation. I consider it to be a compliment. So extra calcium is not absorbed. You might absorb more, but the body has a shut-off switch. You don't just keep absorbing calcium. You just don't. The second thing is, most of the calcium that most people take is not very absorbable anyway. If you really want to absorb calcium, the cheapest highly absorbable form is calcium citrate. If you are a woman, taking extra calcium is probably a good idea. Taking vitamin D, as in Doug, is even a better idea, even more important. It has been said that calcium can benefit. It's been said that calcium do harm. My understanding, based on what I've seen over the years, is that it is very difficult to hurt yourself with reasonable calcium supplementation. And this is one of the few areas of medicine where the RDA is about right. The RDA for calcium is about right. Some people say it's too high. Some people say it's too low. But that's unusual for an RDA. Now, the RDA for magnesium is too low. And that's where some people get into trouble. If you have too little magnesium because you've spent all your time taking calcium, then you can create something of an imbalance. But the problem isn't too much calcium. The problem is too little magnesium. So if you introduce more magnesium, that's likely to solve the problem. People that take calcium and still have weak bones often are not taking enough vitamin D, as in Doug. They're taking the RDA. Maybe they're taking twice the RDA. Well, I was taking vitamin D for a couple years, 1,500, 2,000 units a day. Went to the doctor and I had a blood test. I said, please check my vitamin D. She said, all right. I wanted to check because I thought I was taking too much, possibly. I wanted to be sure I wasn't. So the test came back and my vitamin D level was low. And she wrote in pen on the results, you should take a vitamin D supplement. Well, I already was. So 2,000 didn't do it for me. Of course, I live in a northern latitude without much sun. Now I'm taking twice that. I take about 4,000 units a day. And this coming July, I'll get my vitamin D checked again, and I will report back to you with the results.
Okay, this is an interesting one, not the normal kind of question that we get. My name is Owen Baird, and I'm a college student majoring in statistics. I have to do a project on any set of data I want, and I want to do it on vitamin C's effect on blood sugar levels. I was curious if you knew, is there such a data report out there, and if so, how could I get my hands on it?
I don't know. This would require a full-blown literature search. I would start with PubMed, Medline, and then I would also go to journals that are not in Medline, famously the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, which has been published since 1967, and the U.S. National Library of Medicine refuses to index it. The Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine has an online archive. You can get to it directly from my website, dryourself.com. Medline is easy to reach. These two sources, and you need to start asking around. You're going to have to do a little legwork on this one. I don't have a specific answer for you.
Okay. An older gentleman asks, do you have any research and recommendations for brain tumor patients before and during surgery and recovery? Any insights greatly appreciated.
For recovery, vitamin C helps speed wound healing and reduces the chance of infection and complications, and that is a definite. All patients that have surgery have need for extra vitamins, thiamine in particular. There was a time when people could get an intravenous B-complex supplement in hospitals. You might be able to arrange that. That's a nice thing to have if they already have the tubes hooked up. Just have them patch in a bottle of B-complex vitamins and a bottle of vitamin C. They won't do that, of course, unless you absolutely raise the roof. If you are the patient and you had that operation, you're not in a position to say anything. So you have to get your family on there. Now, when the patient is incapacitated, the person with the power is the spouse. If there is no spouse, the person with the power is the child or children. If the children disagree, you're going to have trouble because the system will break down where the weakest link is. If there are no children and someone has power of attorney, they can handle this for you. Arranging an IV of B-complex vitamins and vitamin C post-surgically is a really good idea, and it will shorten the amount of time a person is in hospital. As far as in advance, I think people should have vitamin C before they go in for surgery to also lessen the risks. It is possible to have oral vitamin C, but they're going to make you stop maybe 8, 12, 24 hours before surgery. That is reasonable. Nevertheless, for the week or two building up, you can take it. The Gerson therapy actually shows case histories where people were cured of brain tumors on Dr. Gerson's program of intense program of huge amounts of vegetable juices, organic food, and some supplements. I am not saying that that is the cure. I am saying that it's something to look into. Anything that helps is good to use.
Okay, thank you. This one is a little longer. I've been on a multitude of medications for over 25 years due to a panic disorder and depression. Along with taking the meds, I've experienced and continue to experience numerous side effects which cause illness and pain. I've been trying to wean myself from my current meds, which include Effexor and clonazepam, so I can try vitamin therapy, but I end up going through horrible withdrawal. I've looked on the internet for suggestions on how to avoid or reduce the withdrawal symptoms, but haven't managed to find anything. Any recommendations for me?
Yes, work with your doctor. Don't try to withdraw yourself from medication that the doctor prescribed. That doesn't make any sense. You need to go back to the doctor that put you on the medications and talk about the side effects and point out to the doctor what the doctor probably has heard before, that it takes more and more medicine to give you less and less benefit, and the more medicine you take, the more side effects you have. So you need to ask for a declining dosage schedule, supervised by the doctor, where they gradually take you off the medication. This could take weeks, this could take months. At the same time, you can introduce vitamins and gradually increase the vitamins. Recently, I published a short paper with Dr. Todd Pemberty, a niacin researcher, a case history of a person who got off of Xanax, generic Xanax, aprazolam, that they'd been on for 2 years, and they used high doses of niacin, GABA, a better diet, and vitamin B12. If you go to the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service, you can read this paper. You can get to the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service by clicking the link at my website, dryourself.com. Now, that's just one case. It doesn't mean it's you. But there have been other cases where people have used nutrition to get off drugs. Remember that if you're taking drugs and you're having side effects, go to the doctor that put you on them. If you buy a new Porsche and you have a problem, go back to the dealer. Don't let Uncle Fred at it with an axe and a spoon.
Yeah, very good. This is an older lady who is saying her husband has only got one kidney due to cancer. Is it still safe for him to be on the high doses of vitamins?
Probably, but that requires care and monitoring. The human body has 2 kidneys as prevention. We don't need 2 kidneys. There are people that have voluntarily given up a kidney for someone else. I don't think that that's a great idea, but if you can save the life of a family member, that changes everything. Now it is a great idea. We have probably more kidney capacity than we need, but because of our high-protein diets, we cause our kidneys to age prematurely. And this is, again, a commonly accepted nutrition principle. When I taught clinical nutrition at the graduate level 20 years ago, I had a very conservative nutrition textbook. It said vitamin supplements were no good and probably dangerous, that kind of nutrition textbook. And in that nutrition textbook, there was a section called the Aging Western Kidney. And it brought my attention big time to the idea that we eat too much protein. So your bigger danger to a one-kidney system is eating the standard American diet, high in salt and high in protein. That's where you need to really make your changes. The amounts of vitamins that we're talking about are high, but only in the case of niacin and vitamin C are we going to really, really high amounts, and then only if you're sick. Niacin is detoxed by the liver, not by the kidney. Vitamin C is excreted through the urine, but the kidney doesn't have to work very hard to get rid of it because vitamin C is such a small molecule. The same with niacin. It really goes right through the kidneys very easily. In fact, you could argue that if you take vitamin C, that'll keep your kidney free of kidney stones and also reduce urinary tract infections. The bottom line is, what's safer, a drug or the vitamin? Your caution is appropriate, and do more reading on this one. Remember that everybody's different. I don't know this situation. I am not a physician, so you need to check and see for yourself. Generally speaking, the biggest problem, the biggest threat to our kidneys is our lousy diet.
Okay, thank you. Folks, there's so many questions coming in here. I just got to tell you, there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to cover them all because we don't have too long left tonight. But let me give you another one, Andrew. I have a chronic infection from a major surgery 18 months ago. Doctors don't have any idea what to do. They say deal with the infection forever with antibiotics for life, or let them do exploratory surgery and scrape on the bone and various plastic surgery or amputation. I've already had 5 surgeries. I don't want any more. Right now, I'm taking 30,000 milligrams of vitamin C throughout the day, but my open sore is still not really getting any better, and I've run out of opinions. Any thoughts?
That sounds pretty severe. If you can have all those surgeries and all those doctors, they should be able to hook up an IV of vitamin C, and I think that it's going to be a matter of getting large amounts of vitamin C in there in a hurry. And I appreciate the fact you're taking the 30,000 milligrams of C a day, but that just might not be enough under the circumstances. This is an extreme case, and it requires, I think, appropriate measures. Intravenous vitamin C would be a really good idea. You can find doctors who do that. It is not easy. No, I don't have a list. No, I don't make referrals or recommendations. That's what the internet is for. Ask at health food stores, check on the internet, do searches, and you will find someone. You may have to do some traveling, but it would be worth the effort. In this particular case, the best thing would be to get it done right at the hospital and have an IV of vitamin C for maybe every other day or even every day for a week or 2.
Okay, thank you. Another one, there's a lot of information on your website and other orthomolecular resources about lowering blood pressure, but what about raising it? My mother and grandmother take B complex, C, D, K, Q10, niacin, and a multivitamin for 3 months with good results, but both still have low blood pressure issues from time to time and have had for years. Any thoughts?
Well, the first thing you'd want to do is make sure it's really low to the point where it's a concern. I would, again, work with your doctor. If the doctor says, gee, your blood pressure is too low, we've got to raise it, then you could move on. But if the doctor says, it's low, but no big deal, then maybe you should not worry about it. That's a decision for your physician. Vitamin E, as an Edward, does tend to strengthen heartbeat. And in some cases, it will gently raise blood pressure. And in that list of vitamins that was just read off, I don't remember hearing vitamin E. Doctors Wilfred and Evan Shute, S-H-U-T-E, are the doctors, cardiologists, that published a lot on vitamin E. An internet search will find information on them. They wrote a number of books. The Shutes treated tens of thousands of people with vitamin E. They reported that vitamin E can slightly raise blood pressure.
Okay, thank you. This one, Andrew, it's a guy from Hong Kong, and there's an issue with the language in that English is not his first language. So what I'm going to say to you might make no sense whatsoever. I did go back to him and confirm that he meant exactly what he said, and he says he does, but it still doesn't make sense to me, so maybe it will to you. Hi, Dr. Andrew. I come from Hong Kong. I suffered from antidepressant withdrawal syndrome that I am still recovering from. And this is what doesn't make sense to me. He says the drugs make my head muscle can't bend anymore, no more elasticity. Can any supplement solve my problem? Now, I went back to him and said, you mean your head muscle? And he said, yes, my head muscle. Does that mean anything to you?
Well, it implies tension or spasm or any one of a number of things. I don't know. I think this is something that you're going to have to go back to the physician and talk to them with. If the drugs are causing that side effect, it's an emergency. You need to get off the drugs immediately. At the very least, you should check the list of all of the contraindications of those drugs and see if they're causing it. If they are not, it could be unrelated to the drug. For instance, some people go to a chiropractor and that symptom will go away. I taught at a chiropractic college, so I have a disproportionately large number of friends who are chiropractors. That may help. A second opinion would be in order. Another possibility is that a person needs to take more magnesium. A lack of magnesium, which is very common, can cause muscle spasms and lockup. Interestingly enough, Fire Your Doctor is available in a Chinese edition. And my book, Doctor Yourself, is also available in a Chinese edition. So if you want to read more about what I think in Chinese, you can. By the way, my books are also available or becoming available in Spanish, Hindi, Norwegian, and a number of other languages. So if this is a language issue for you, and since I have no command of foreign languages, I have enough trouble with English, since I'm an American, I recommend that you look into this further, and maybe those Chinese editions of my books will assist you.
Okay, thank you for that. That's one of the interesting things, actually, about the people who've registered in the course. I'm amazed at how broad this goes around the world. We've people literally from every corner of the world enrolled in that. So that's been a sort of an eye-opener for me. That's the link, folks, if you're interested in the Megavitamin course. That has a 14-minute video that explains everything about it, and when it starts, and how long it lasts, and how much it costs. So if you're interested in that, it's www.andrewsaul.com/megasl. So if you're interested in that, please have a look there. And one more question for you, Andrew, and we're going to wrap up tonight, because it's been and thank you, folks, for what's coming in, because I mean, literally, we have posted on the event page that we're running on, we've posted like, I think, 40 or 50 questions, and we just simply can't get around to answering them all. So let me read one more. I'm educating myself as you profess, and I'm trying. Okay, sorry, that's just like a compliment more than a question. So.
Well, thank you.
Yes, you know, we've had some amazing things come in, Andrew. I posted a couple on Facebook today. People who take the simple advice that you give, and it literally changes their lives, literally. And
I'm very honored, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, and also I would just point out to people, and this is for no other reason than I know the heart that's behind Andrew's ministry, if you like. He spends so much time doing these things for free and giving of himself for free, and I know all of you appreciate that, because I get so many emails from you thanking me sort of on behalf of him, so I appreciate that. Last question, Andrew. Any advice on maintaining bone density in postmenopausal women? I've heard D3. Can you comment on what an ideal mix would be?
Vitamin D is the one, and vitamin D3 is the one to take. With vitamin D, it's basically a matter of quantity. If you live in a northern climate, you need plenty. If you live along the equator, you need less. If you're a person of color, you need more. The older you are, probably the more you need. Exercise is a good way to improve bone density. Avoid caffeine. That's a good way to improve bone density. Reduce alcohol. That's a good way to improve bone density. And reduce, here it comes, your overconsumption of protein. Too much protein does lots of nasty things in the body, and nobody likes to hear this. They say, there he goes, Martha, he's talking about being a vegetarian again. I heard him say that last time. Well, too bad, because Dr. Colin Campbell and others who have looked into this, who are really smart, point out that a plant-based diet is the way to go. Remember Dr. Spock? The Dr. Spock? The child doctor, the pediatrician. Dr. Spock is in favor of vegetarianism. And you have Dr. Dean Ornish, the cardiologist, who's in favor of vegetarianism. And you have Dr. Max Gerson, who's in favor of vegetarianism. Now, remember, I'm not a vegetarian myself. I believe the best thing is moderation. I have a plant-based diet. That does not mean a plants-only diet. I raise my children with yogurt and cheese and raw milk and eggs and once in a blue moon a little bit of fish, but they didn't have meat. And everybody said, oh, you're a vegetarian. No, we just didn't eat meat. So if you have a reduction in meat, you will have a reduction in your protein intake. This is how serious it is. One chicken drumstick has all the protein you need for an entire day. I know an awful lot of people that would consider themselves ill-used if they went to the local fast food emporium and ordered their dinner, and there's just one little measly chicken drumstick on there. Therefore, our whole conception is wrong. I don't, I enjoy saying that, but in a way I kind of don't. We have this weird idea that we're doing it right, and we're not. Our protein intake is way too high, and this is why we have these problems when we get older. Arthritis, kidney problems, osteoporosis, and the panoply of things that go with it. These are lifestyle changes, and it takes decades before they hit you. So get out in front of it. Change now. Reduce that protein intake, take your vitamins, do it for the next 20 or 30 years, see how you feel. Dr. Abram Hoffer told me that. I was taking a bunch of vitamins at lunch one day, and Abram leaned over and he said, you'll live a lot longer if you take those vitamins. And I thought, oh, that's wise advice from Dr. Hoffer himself. And then he leaned over again and he said, if you don't, come back and see me.
One last question for you, because it's just come in here and it's interesting to me because I got a couple of emails about from mailing lists I'm on today trying to get me to buy this stuff. A lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon of producing different green powders with spirulina in there and broccoli and etc. And this is sold as a cure-all and a magic potion almost now. How does that compare with taking fresh vegetable juice and fresh raw vegetables, in your opinion?
Well, it's more expensive.
That's for sure.
It's mighty convenient. Little packets of green stuff that you can travel with. Take it on the airplane when you're sitting in economy and everybody else is drinking their soft drinks. You can make your green liquid and drink it in front of everyone, and then pass out the air comfort bags and see who needs them if you like. No, I think the green drink mixes, no matter what they are good. Certainly it's better than candy. It's better than junk food. I have nothing bad to say about it, except it's kind of pricey. I also would point out that, generally speaking, anything that's desiccated or packaged or in any way stored is going to have a lower nutrient content, no matter how carefully it's processed. You do have issues of storage and preparation. Still, you'd get a lot of nutrients from them. If you really want to do it cheaply, like I do, and I've helped friends get over gastrointestinal problems doing exactly this, I grow broccoli in my garden and cabbage. And I go out and I pick the broccoli leaves. Now, nobody eats broccoli leaves. And they're big. I mean, the things are huge. They're the size of a platter. And I take the broccoli leaves, wrap them around a carrot, run them through the juicer, and I make my own green drink, and it costs me nothing. At the end of the year, farmers' fields are full of cabbage leaves. Have you ever lived by a cabbage field? If you haven't, woo, you don't know what you're missing once it becomes springtime and all those leaves are out. So do everyone a favor. Pick the leaves. Don't let them rot. Of course, we'd like them to be organic. In my garden, everything's organic. That's because I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to buy pesticides and herbicides. And also because organic tastes better, and also because you don't need all those silly sprays. Broccoli and cabbage, they grow no matter what you do. I got a C in botany in college. If I can grow it, you can grow it. So broccoli leaves, cabbage leaves, these are practically free for the asking. And there's your green drink.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us. And make sure you go to our Facebook, Andrew Saul, join us there, and we'll keep you up to date with what's happening. Same with Twitter, also andrewsaul.com and doctoryourself.com. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again. Good night.
Important notice. Please let me remind you that Andrew Saul is not a medical doctor. Nothing in this recording is in any way offered as prescription, diagnosis, nor treatment for any disease, illness, infirmity, or physical condition. Any form of self-treatment or alternative health program necessarily must involve an individual's acceptance of some risk, and no one should assume otherwise. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a physician. Consult your doctor before making any health decision. Thank you. This recording is copyright Andrew W. Saul 2014 and all previous years. It may not be copied, sold, shared, or otherwise distributed without prior written permission.
You can't do any harm drinking vegetable juice, and those are the two things that I would recommend.
And those Chinese exercises you talk about, Andrew, like the pressure points, are they supposed to help you like instantly, like clear your vision, or is that a long-term thing?
Well, I would say in terms of vision improvement, it's an open question. Whenever I do them, I feel so much more relaxed, and Dr. Bates said that that was part and parcel of some vision disorders. He believed that the extrinsic, the outside muscles of the eye, had a lot to do with it. Conventional eye doctors will tell you it's the inside muscles, the tiny little muscles that actually manipulate the lens. But Bates felt the outside muscles had a lot to do with it. At the very least, I feel more relaxed. Does my vision improve when I do them? I think it does, but of course that could be the old placebo effect again. Will it work long term? I think you just need to try it and find out. Remember, those are acupressure exercises. No needles are involved here. Common sense tells us make sure your nails aren't too long. Make sure that you are careful when you're putting your fingers around your eyes, and read up on this, because I think you'll find that these traditional exercises have much to offer.
That's fascinating. Someone had sent us a question here. They were watching the first video that we did in the launch of the Megavitamins course, where we explained how bad sugar is generally, but especially to do with depression.
I could have just worn glasses a little bit of the time, and my parents, who were very dutiful about doing whatever the doctor said, had me wear my glasses all the time. That may have not been the best advice to follow, but they followed it in good faith. As far as things like simple myopia go, I think that the Bates eye exercises are worth looking at, B-A-T-E-S. Bates was very interested in massage, and he designed a series of hand exercises. One is called palming, where you fit the palms right over like that. They fit right in, and you, with the lids closed, you look up and down and to either side. I think the Bates eye exercises are very good. Many of you know that I'm a licensed pilot, and I decided to test this once, so I asked my eye doctor to give me glasses that were too weak for me. Instead of my regular driving or flying glasses, I asked for a reduced prescription, and he made some half-strength glasses for me. I did the Bates eye exercises for quite a while regularly before I went up flying, and at 4,000 feet I could see the ripples on Lake Ontario with my glasses that were not adequate. So there's something to this, in my opinion. The second thing to try are the Chinese eye exercises that I describe in my website, and I think in Doctor Yourself. These are a series of pressure points. There's one up here in the supraorbital notch.
And they're asking about types of sugar, basically. Are we just talking about processed white sugar as being bad for you, or does it extend to honey, to maple syrup, and so on and so on?
Nah, they're all bad. Some are worse than others. Truth of the matter is, a dietitian, classically trained, traditionally trained, medically oriented, will tell you that sugar is sugar, and there's some truth to that. If you eat vast amounts of honey, or vast amounts of maple syrup, or vast amounts of brown sugar, you're going to have a problem. But there is a backstory to this. You can't eat a lot of fresh, raw, dark, cloudy honey from the honeycomb. You can't do it. Try it. Get a honeycomb, an actual honeycomb, and let that honey ooze out. This is unfiltered, unprocessed, just the way the bees made it. And if you try to eat a half a cup of fresh, raw, unprocessed honey, you're not going to be able to do it. The same with pure maple syrup. As a former Vermonter, hey, I am here to tell you that I'm a real fan of maple syrup, and I love maple syrup on oatmeal. I like it on a lot of things. I just can't eat a lot of it. It's satisfying. Now, when you get a box of chocolates, when you get candy bars, when you get sweets in general,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome from a cold Belfast, Northern Ireland. It's good to have everyone with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. And Andrew is standing by in New York. So, Andrew, hopefully you're with us. Are you there in New York, sir?
I am here, Trevor.
Good to see you. How's the weather there?
Well, warmer than it was for the last 8 months. We have 2 seasons here. There's spring and winter.
Right. You had a long winter this time.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get straight into the questions because that's what people are here for. This one comes in, I don't have the name actually. It says, I am curious to know if our eyesight and graying can be addressed through nutrition and exercises. With age, does our eyesight decrease from 20/20 vision, and the same with graying? Have you experimented with this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. We'll talk about eyesight first, and the first thing you're going to notice is that I wear glasses, so take that into consideration. If there were an easy fix for improving your eyesight, naturally, I would look like this instead of like this. I started wearing glasses when I was 8 years old, and probably too soon. I've talked to behavioral optometrists since then who said that really, there's one here by the temple. There's one down here where the facial nerves comes out of the maxilla. And there's this one here that you see a lot of people do instinctively. And then there's gently stroking the lids with the eyes closed. And then there's an acupuncture point or acupressure point. It's hard to show that on camera, but it's basically the crook of the thumb. And you can press there on either one. Now, I went through them very quickly. Normally, if you're going to do those, you might take several minutes. So these are 2 things I would recommend for simple vision issues like myopia or perhaps for farsightedness. For things like macular degeneration, a major cause of blindness in the elderly, that can absolutely be prevented or the risk reduced by taking a diet that's high in antioxidants. And that means vitamin C, vitamin E as in Edward, and vegetable juices. Cataracts, another concern as we get older, and you don't have to be old to get a cataract. Probably 10% of the people that have cataract surgery are under 60. And that no longer seems old to me. So bear in mind that cataracts have been shown to be less likely, or at least less pronounced, in people that take lots of vitamin C. So additional antioxidants do protect the eye from many things. I would say the best thing to do is to try to look into this more. You can't do any harm doing these eye exercises carefully and gently.